and then get this big door closed. So on your left as you come into the room, you have photos of modern day Nazareth. It's a busy, colourful town today. Over 80,000 people live in Nazareth, so it's a reasonable sized town. It's an Arab town today. About 70% Muslim background Arabs and about 30% Christian background Arabs. And of those Christians, mostly traditional churches, the Catholic and the Orthodox, but also a small number of Bible-believing and gospel-preaching churches as well, like Baptists and Brethren and so on. Some charismatic churches as well. A very different picture from the time of the Lord Jesus, when there were just a few hundred people living in Nazareth. Of course, it was a Jewish village. And we read in the Gospel of Luke that Joseph and Mary, when she was pregnant, they travelled from Nazareth in the north down south to Bethlehem, didn't they, in Judea. It's about a 3 or 4 day journey by foot. Now, why did they make this journey? They had to register for their taxes. The Roman Emperor had called a census, and that meant they had to go back to their hometown, the town of their family, to register for tax. Now, they were both from the line of King David. Now, King David was from about 1000 BC, 1,000 years earlier. But his hometown was Bethlehem, remember? That's where he and the family lived. And so that's why Joseph and Mary travelled to Bethlehem. And that meant Jesus ended up being born there, but that fulfilled prophecy. Although Joseph and Mary were living in Nazareth, Jesus was born in Bethlehem. And the prophet Micah in the Old Testament says the ruler of Israel, the Messiah, will come out of Bethlehem of Judah. And that's exactly what happened. Now, the country is a tiny strip of land, isn't it? But it acts like a very important land bridge between the south, Africa, Egypt, heading north, going east through Mesopotamia to Asia, heading west, of course, to Europe. And a very important international trade route passed through the land called, in the Latin, Via Maris. It means the way of the sea. And it's mentioned in the book of Acts in the New Testament. And so whoever controlled this land would control the trade route and all the wealth and the power that went with it. So there was always fighting to control this land, always wars and battles. So we've got a timeline up here, from the time of Jesus on the right to the modern day on the left, some of the different empires that control this little country over the centuries. Now, the paintings just alongside it on the right here are by pilgrims to Nazareth in the 19th century. All looks very peaceful, but in fact Nazareth was destroyed several times in the last 2,000 years. If we can squeeze in and close this big door, that would help for anybody coming behind in the next group, please. Now, the early form of transport was a donkey, and you've seen that Nazareth, it's very hilly. It's built amongst the hills, and the donkeys would find the easiest routes up and down the hillside, treading out their paths, and then later some of the early roads were built on some of these early donkey paths. We've got a picture of a donkey up here, and you see those early roads just wide enough for a fully loaded donkey. And later, some of the main streets of Nazareth were built on some of these early roads. So who could we say were the early city engineers of Nazareth? Who laid out where the roads would go in Nazareth? It was the donkeys. They trod out the paths, and then the people built the roads on the donkey paths. Going to our last room before we go outside. If anyone's tall, just watching out of the stone doorway here.